The night was unnervingly silent, save for the faint hum of city lights filtering through the curtains. Jason sat alone on his couch, phone trembling in his hand as the screen glowed with unread messages. His heart pounded fiercely. What he found shattered the world he thought he knew. The texts were from her, the woman he loved, the one he trusted beyond reason. And they were addressed to his best friend. Betrayal wasn't a distant threat anymore. It was a harsh, brutal reality. His mind raced back to every moment they'd shared, every promise whispered in the dark. How could she? Jason whispered to the empty room, the pain in his voice raw and unfiltered. The realization crashed down like a tidal wave, drowning hope in its cold depths. The man who had always believed in loyalty now faced a devastating truth that would redefine everything. Jason's mind spun uncontrollably as memories flooded in. The late nights she said she was working, the secretive smiles when she thought he wasn't watching, the subtle changes in her voice. All the signs he had missed or chosen to ignore now screamed at him in painful clarity. He tried to steady his breathing, to make sense of the chaos unraveling before him. His best friend, the man he had confided in, now the bearer of a secret too cruel to bear. The room felt colder, emptier, as doubt settled like a dark cloud over his heart. The man who once believed in unwavering trust now grappled with the suffocating weight of betrayal, his faith in love breaking apart scene by scene. He recalled the night before, when Emma had kissed him goodbye with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The soft whisper of her, "I love you," now felt like a cruel lie. Jason's throat tightened as the betrayal twisted inside him. He had given everything, his trust, his heart, and now everything was crumbling. The phone vibrated again, a new message from the friend he once considered family. He didn't want to read it, but he knew he had to face the truth. The story he thought he lived was nothing but a fragile illusion, and now he had to decide whether to confront the wreckage or retreat into silence. Jason's fingers hovered over the screen, his heartbeat loud in his ears. He debated replying, confronting, or simply deleting the messages, and pretending none of this existed. But silence felt like surrender, and surrender wasn't in his nature. The years of friendship, the moments of laughter and shared secrets, they all screamed for answers. He finally typed a single word, "Why?" His thumb hesitated over the send button, trembling with the weight of the question. In that moment, the future hung by a fragile thread, balanced between confrontation and despair. The room seemed to close in on him as the screen blinked, indicating the message was read. Seconds felt like hours. Jason's breath caught when the reply appeared, short and cold. "It's complicated." Those two words sliced through him sharper than any blade. The truth, he realized, was more tangled and painful than he had imagined. As the night deepened, so did his resolve. Whatever lay ahead, Jason knew his life had irrevocably changed. The man who once lived in certainty now stood at the precipice of the unknown, ready, or forced, to face the consequences of shattered trust. Jason awoke the next morning feeling hollow, the weight of the previous night's revelation pressing down like a suffocating fog. Every corner of his apartment echoed with memories of happier times, now twisted by suspicion and doubt. He reached for his phone instinctively, scrolling through old messages and photos, searching for a clue that might restore the faith he once had. But every smile, every tender word, now seemed laced with betrayal. As he sat staring out the window, watching the city stir to life, Jason realized this was more than just heartbreak. It was a crisis of identity. Who was Emma really? And who was he, now that everything he believed in had cracked? Determined to confront his confusion, Jason reached out to Sarah, Emma's close friend, hoping for clarity. The phone call was tense, Sarah's voice hesitant, protective, yet filled with unspoken truths. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said quietly. Jason felt the fragile threads of friendship begin to unravel, torn between anger and the desperate need for answers. The conversation left him with more questions than answers, but also a flicker of hope that somewhere beneath the lies, the truth could still be uncovered. Trust, he realized, wasn't just about loyalty. It was about understanding, forgiveness, and sometimes brutal honesty. Later that day, Jason found himself wandering through the park where he and Emma had once shared laughter and dreams. The vibrant colors of autumn leaves contrasted sharply with the dull ache in his chest. He recalled how Emma had spoken of their future with such certainty, and how now uncertainty clawed at his every thought. As strangers passed by, oblivious to his turmoil, Jason grappled with the painful realization that love alone might not be enough to mend what was broken. The man who once saw life in vivid color now felt trapped in a grayscale world, forced to rebuild from the ruins of trust. That evening, Jason confronted Mark, the best friend caught in the crossfire of betrayal. The confrontation was raw, charged with years of friendship unraveling in minutes. Mark's defenses crumbled as he admitted mistakes, but his words did little to soothe the pain. Jason struggled between the instinct to lash out and the desperate hope for understanding. The room felt heavy with unspoken regret and shattered loyalty. This was not just a battle for truth but a fight for the fragments of a friendship he once believed was unbreakable. The lines between friend and foe blurred, leaving Jason to wonder if forgiveness was even possible. The night stretched into silence after the confrontation, leaving Jason alone with his swirling thoughts. He sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars, his mind a storm of anger, sadness, and reluctant acceptance. He realized that moving forward wouldn't be simple or swift. Healing meant facing uncomfortable truths and deciding what was worth holding on to, and what had to be left behind. As dawn approached, Jason vowed to reclaim his life, no longer shackled by deceit but strengthened by the painful lessons of trust, lost, and the faint promise of new beginnings. The days that followed were a blur of restless nights and weary mornings. Jason found himself retreating deeper into isolation, unable to trust the world around him. The betrayal had fractured his sense of security, leaving him vulnerable and raw. Friends reached out, but their voices felt distant, drowned out by the loud echo of his own doubts. In moments of quiet he questioned everything, his judgment, his worth, and the very idea of love. Yet beneath the despair, a flicker of determination grew. Jason realized that healing demanded courage, and he resolved to confront not just Emma and Mark, but the shadows within himself that had allowed this pain to take root. Jason decided to seek solace in old hobbies that once brought him joy. He picked up a paintbrush after months of neglect, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the grayscale he felt inside. Each stroke was an attempt to channel the chaos into creation, to rebuild a sense of self piece by piece. Though the images were raw and unfinished, they mirrored his emotional journey, fragmented, painful, yet yearning for hope. Through this slow process, Jason began to glimpse the possibility of renewal, discovering that sometimes the path to healing starts with small, imperfect steps. One afternoon, Jason ran into Emma unexpectedly at a local coffee shop. The encounter was charged with unsaid words and lingering tension. Emma's eyes held a mix of guilt and regret, but her silence spoke volumes. Jason wrestled with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, longing, confusion. Their brief conversation was a delicate dance, filled with pauses heavy with meaning. Neither offered easy answers, but the encounter forced Jason to confront the complexity of forgiveness and the painful reality that some wounds take time to heal. Jason's internal battle continued as he navigated daily life with a fractured heart. Trust had become a fragile, elusive concept. Every interaction carried the weight of his recent pain, and every smile felt suspect. Yet amidst the turmoil, he found unexpected support from a new friend, Claire, whose kindness and steady presence offered a gentle light in his darkness. She listened without judgment and encouraged Jason to be patient with himself. Slowly, he began to open up, discovering that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about learning to live with the scars. As weeks passed, Jason's resolve grew stronger, though the pain lingered like a shadow. He realized that the journey ahead required forgiveness, not just for Emma and Mark, but for himself. He wrote a letter he never intended to send, pouring out his anger, sorrow, and hopes. This act of release was a turning point, symbolizing a fragile new beginning. While the past could not be undone, Jason was ready to reclaim his story and build a future shaped by resilience rather than betrayal. A sudden discovery turned Jason's world upside down once more. While sorting through old messages on his phone, he stumbled upon a hidden conversation between Emma and Mark, one he had never seen before. The texts revealed layers of deception, but also moments of vulnerability and doubt from Emma. This unexpected glimpse behind the curtain complicated everything Jason thought he knew. Betrayal mingled with pain, but also with a haunting question: was there more to her story than cold betrayal? The revelation pulled him into a darker maze of emotions where trust and truth blurred into one painful puzzle. Jason's curiosity and heartbreak pushed him to confront Emma again, this time armed with the new knowledge. Their conversation was raw and honest, exposing cracks in the facade they'd both maintained. Emma admitted to mistakes, but also shared fears and regrets that Jason had never anticipated. For the first time, vulnerability replaced silence. The encounter was a fragile bridge between past wounds and the possibility of understanding, forcing Jason to wrestle with forgiveness beyond betrayal. It was a turning point where anger began to soften, making room for painful honesty. But even as Jason sought clarity, shadows from the past crept back in. A mutual friend revealed a secret neither Emma nor Mark had shared, a truth that shattered any hope for a simple resolution. The revelation forced Jason to reevaluate everything, including his own role in the tangled web of friendship and love. He felt caught between justice and mercy, truth and denial. The story's complexity deepened, and Jason realized healing wouldn't come from simple answers, but from embracing the messy, painful realities of human relationships. Faced with this new truth, Jason felt the pressure of an impossible choice. Should he sever ties completely, or attempt to rebuild fractured connections? The weight of decisions pressed heavily on him, fracturing his once clear sense of right and wrong. The emotional burden was overwhelming, yet Jason recognized that growth often came from embracing discomfort. In this moment of vulnerability, he found a strange strength, a willingness to face the unknown and accept that some wounds might never fully heal, but could still teach valuable lessons about trust, love, and forgiveness. As the night deepened, Jason wrote in his journal, pouring out his tangled emotions: hope, sorrow, anger, and a cautious desire for peace. He acknowledged that life was rarely simple or fair, and that forgiveness might be the hardest battle of all. Yet in these pages he began to forge a new path forward, not defined by betrayal, but by resilience and self-discovery. The story that had once felt like a tragedy was slowly becoming one of transformation. Jason closed the journal with a quiet resolve to keep moving, one step at a time toward whatever future awaited him. The confrontation Jason had long avoided finally arrived. In a tense, raw meeting with both Emma and Mark, emotions erupted. Words cut sharp like knives, accusations, defenses, apologies tangled in a volatile storm. Jason's heart raced as years of friendship and love were laid bare, exposing fractures that seemed impossible to mend. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a strange clarity. The pain was undeniable, but so was the shared humanity beneath the hurt. This confrontation, brutal as it was, became a crucible for truth, forcing each to confront their choices and their consequences in a way that nothing else had. After the confrontation, silence settled heavily over Jason. He wandered aimlessly through the city streets at night, the cold air biting but strangely cleansing. The once vibrant world felt muted, yet in the quiet he found a flicker of peace. The turmoil inside him was far from over, but he sensed the first tentative steps toward healing. The confrontation hadn't erased the pain, but it had cleared the way for acceptance. Jason realized that moving forward meant embracing uncertainty and forgiving not only others but himself as well. In the days that followed, Jason found himself reconnecting with old friends and rediscovering parts of himself long neglected. He laughed again, albeit cautiously, and allowed himself moments of joy without guilt. The road to recovery was winding, marked by setbacks and small victories. Yet each step reinforced a vital truth. That betrayal, while devastating, did not define his worth. With quiet determination, Jason began to rebuild his life on new foundations, ones rooted in self-respect and hope rather than broken promises. One afternoon, Jason received an unexpected message from Emma, a tentative olive branch. Her words were careful and sincere, expressing regret and a desire to find peace. Jason read the message slowly, emotions swirling. The past could not be undone, but the offer of reconciliation opened a door he hadn't dared to approach. After much thought, he chose to respond, not with anger, but with guarded hope. Forgiveness, he understood, was a gift he could give himself, freeing him from the chains of bitterness. As the sun set on another day, Jason stood at a crossroads, not just between past and future, but between pain and hope. He understood that healing wasn't linear, and that scars would remain as reminders of what he endured. But with the weight of betrayal lifting, a new chapter beckoned, one where trust could be rebuilt, not just in others but in himself. The story that began in heartbreak was evolving into one of strength and renewal. With quiet resolve, Jason stepped forward, ready to write the next page of his life. Jason's newfound strength faced its first real test at a family gathering. Surrounded by familiar faces, he felt the weight of whispered judgments and veiled glances. Questions about his silence, curiosity about his pain, and the subtle pressure to move on clashed with his fragile healing. Yet instead of retreating, Jason stood tall, meeting each look with quiet resolve. For the first time, he didn't feel broken or small, but resilient and whole in his vulnerability. In the warmth and awkwardness of family, he discovered a deeper courage, not just to survive but to show his truth openly. The fractured pieces of his heart slowly began to mend in the light of honest connection. Seeking meaning beyond his personal heartbreak, Jason volunteered at a local community center. Initially hesitant, he soon found purpose in listening to others' struggles and offering small acts of kindness. Each story he encountered was a mirror reflecting resilience, hope, and the complexity of human pain. The act of giving transformed Jason's own wounds into a source of empathy, reminding him that healing isn't solitary, it's woven through shared experience. His involvement became a lifeline, connecting him to a larger world and reminding him that even broken hearts can help mend others. One peaceful evening, Jason sought solitude by the riverbank. As the water rippled gently in the fading light, he reflected on his painful journey, the betrayals, the anger, the long nights of doubt. Yet, in that quiet moment, he realized his spirit had softened without breaking. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or excusing, but releasing the heavy chains of bitterness. The river's steady flow symbolized his own gradual healing, sometimes slow, sometimes turbulent, but always moving forward. Here, Jason embraced a new truth, that scars need not define him, but could instead mark the path of his resilience and growth. Jason's friendship with Claire deepened into a steady source of comfort and strength. Unlike the fractured bonds of his past, this connection was grounded in honesty and mutual respect. They shared moments of laughter and vulnerability, slowly rebuilding Jason's faith and trust. Claire's unwavering support helped him navigate the complexities of healing, teaching him that new beginnings often sprout from the soil of pain. Their growing bond was a quiet promise that, even after betrayal, genuine love and friendship were possible, stronger for the trials they'd overcome together. As the seasons changed, Jason stood at a threshold, no longer the broken man overwhelmed by betrayal, but someone forged anew through pain and perseverance. He understood that healing was an ongoing process, filled with setbacks and triumphs, and that scars would remain as reminders of his journey. Yet those scars no longer held him captive. With a hopeful gaze toward the horizon, Jason embraced uncertainty, ready to face the future with open eyes and a brave heart. His story was no longer defined by loss, but by the enduring power of resilience and the promise of a life rebuilt with strength and grace. Jason awoke slowly to the gentle caress of morning light pouring through the gauzy curtains, casting soft golden patterns across his room. The air was still, quiet, an almost sacred pause after months of turmoil and relentless heartache. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he allowed himself a moment of stillness, breathing deeply as he traced the journey that had brought him here. The nights filled with doubt and tears, the agonizing betrayals, the raw loneliness, all now softened like distant echoes in a faraway room. His scars remained, etched beneath the surface, but they no longer dictated his identity. For the first time in a long while, Jason felt the profound freedom of being at peace with his past and hopeful for the future. This morning was a quiet promise, a new chapter waiting to be written with courage and grace. That afternoon, Jason arrived at the cozy cafe where he was to meet Claire. The scent of fresh coffee and the low murmur of conversations greeted him like a balm. Their friendship, born out of shared vulnerability and honesty, had blossomed into something tender and unbreakable. Sitting across from each other, their easy smiles and warm laughter filled the space with lightness that Jason had not felt in months. They spoke openly of hopes that had once seemed fragile, fears that had been laid bare, and dreams waiting to be chased. Claire's presence was an anchor, grounding him in a world that sometimes felt chaotic. Through her steady companionship, Jason found renewed trust, not just in others, but in himself. For the first time in a long while, he dared to imagine a future filled with love, laughter, and genuine connection. As the day waned, Jason wandered to the riverbank, a place once heavy with sorrow, now imbued with quiet peace. The gentle flow of water mirrored the steady calming of his spirit. Each ripple seemed to wash away fragments of bitterness and pain that had clung stubbornly to his heart. The sky above transformed into a canvas of warm pinks, oranges, and purples, and a cool breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the promise of renewal. Jason paused, closing his eyes, breathing deeply, and allowing himself to feel gratitude for how far he'd come. The scars of betrayal were no longer chains binding him but badges of resilience, marking a journey from darkness to light. The river's endless current was a testament to life's persistent flow, a reminder that no matter how deep the wounds, healing is always possible. That evening, Jason unearthed a leather-bound journal, its worn pages filled with raw, unfiltered thoughts penned during his darkest hours. Reading through each entry, he felt a powerful connection to the man who had been broken, but never defeated. The words were a testament not only to pain but to resilience, the stubborn refusal to let despair win. Holding the journal close, he traced the faded ink with reverence, recognizing that his story was far richer than heartbreak. It was one of transformation, courage, and the slow reclaiming of self. This journal was a bridge between past and future, a tangible reminder that even the deepest wounds could lead to profound growth. Closing the book, Jason felt a profound sense of peace settle over him, a readiness to embrace whatever life had in store next, armed with lessons learned, and a heart open to new beginnings. Under the cloak of night, Jason found himself once again on the rooftop that had witnessed so much of his journey. The city's glittering lights stretched endlessly below him, each one a tiny beacon of hope and possibility. The cool night air stirred softly, carrying the distant hum of life beneath the stars. Standing tall, he breathed in deeply and whispered to the night, "I am ready. Ready to love again, to trust again, and to embrace life fully without fear." The betrayal that had once shattered his world was now a catalyst, a painful, necessary force that shaped him into a stronger, wiser man. In this sacred moment, Jason welcomed his new beginning, knowing the future was wide open and filled with endless potential.